Well, good Sunday morning. I'm very glad that you're joining us this morning. I'm trying this video method thing out to get the message out today, and hopefully it'll be better than reading from a PDF file. So I hope you're doing well. You're all doing well and in good health. We have over 50 families on our email list, and you should have received this email and link to the YouTube that you can find this video on. And feel free to share it with someone if you think would benefit from it that may not be on the email list. So as a church family, we miss meeting together. And while we can't physically be together, I'm encouraging everyone to email and to text, and best of all, to call. I know it might be old-fashioned to some of you, but call. You should all have the June email and a list of phone numbers, and I thank Joan for organizing those phone numbers so everyone has access to them. So call someone today or tomorrow or the next day, but call someone in the days ahead. So today's message is in 3 parts, and I'm sending it along in 3 separate videos. So here goes. I'm also reading it or have it on my computer screen, so if I'm looking at it once in a while, that's what I'm doing. A little different for me too, so we'll see how this goes. So I'm going to start by saying we've been invaded by a killer virus, and as we know, it can reach everyone. We've been given instructions to wash our hands frequently, don't touch your face, stay away 6 feet from each other, and don't congregate. And so how does a congregation not congregate? And of course, the 3 main things are sanitize, sanitize, and sanitize. And now, as of Friday, we're told to stay home for 2 weeks. Are you nervous about what's going on in our world today? Are you starting to worry about it? And for some, maybe you're getting towards the end of your rope on this whole thing. Well, if that's where you're at, or you're thinking about getting there, we've only got 2 alternatives. And here they are. We can either worry or we can worship. Because we're going to do one or the other. If you worry, you can't worship. And if you worship, you can't worry. So, we all need to memorize this verse. It's in Philippians 4:6. You've heard me refer to it numerous times over the years, and it's one of my favorites. It says simply, don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about what? I heard you. Pray about everything. Tell God what you need and thank Him for all that He's done. Well, the Message Bible, it reads, don't fret or worry, instead pray. Let petitions and praises shape your worries into prayers. Let God know your concerns. The Bible says we've got 2 alternatives, worry or worship. The antidote to worship, or to worry, is worship, and the antidote to panic is prayer. The last 2 email messages I've sent reminded us that the Bible tells us that God wants us to worship Him continually. Literally every part of our life is a form of worship to God. It's an act of worship. And we were created to know and love God. That's why God created us. And that's called worship, to know and love God. So how can everything we do become an act of worship? Well, it's actually as easy as learning the ABCs. And seriously, we need to learn the ABCs of worship. Asking, B is the believing, and C, confessing. So I'm going to refer to a story in the Old Testament. It's in 2 Chronicles 20. It's a story of 3 enemy nations that are ganging up on Israel to annihilate it. They formed forces. 3 armies got together and decided to attack the nation of Israel. The leader of Israel nation was a king by the name of Jehoshaphat. Now I'm thinking, how would you like the name Jehoshaphat? To me, at this time, it sounds like Jehoshaphat. So it kind of reminds us that when we Jehoshaphat, sneeze, we're supposed to sneeze into our arms. So remember Jehoshaphat. How's that? In fact, I've gone a little bit further, and I'm going to call him Japhat for short. Now, he might have been a rapper in those days, I'm not sure, but I'm using Japhat. He's upset about these three armies coming. He's more than upset. He's nervous about it. He's worried about it, that are coming up against him. And in this story, we find parts of worship that might just eliminate worry out of your life. It'll show us how we can choose worship instead of worry when things are happening. It might be a whole different way of looking at it than you've ever thought about before. Before we get into the story, let's think about the battle that we're facing today. I mean, we could ask, what's got you worried? And I think most of us will say the virus. Along with that is the health, your finances, your job, your life, whatever that specific worry is. If you do what King Japhat did, you'll see a dramatic reduction of worry in your life. And what do you do when you're overwhelmed and starting to worry? The ABC's of worship. And we start by A, asking. You ask God for help. Before you do anything else, you go directly to God. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Go directly to God. 2 Chronicles 20 says this: the Moabites and the Ammonites and the Meunites joined forces to make war on King Jehoshaphat. He received this intelligent report: a huge force is on its way beyond the Dead Sea to fight you. There's no time to waste. Now there's three nations of ites coming to annihilate Israel. And ever had one of those days where you think people are ganging up on you, or the world is ganging up on you? I mean, not only do we have the virus going, we have job loss, we can't leave our house literally and visit people. You feel like you're being ganged up on. Well, this is how Jehoshaphat felt with these three ites of armies that are ganged up against him. So here's what you do. You ask God for help. And before you do anything else, you turn to God. In verse 3, Jehoshaphat was afraid, so he decided to ask the Lord what to do. Notice that his first reaction was what it was. His first reaction was fear. And that's pretty normal considering the odds. Fear is a reasonable emotion. In fact, fear is a normal emotion, a normal reaction to the problem. In fact, in some situations, like this virus we're going through, this pandemic, if you're not afraid, there's something wrong with you, because fear is a normal reaction. But here's the problem. Your problem is not the fear. Your problem is what you do with it. And when you face a problem and you begin to be afraid, don't let it intimidate you. Let it motivate you to prayer and to worship. Because here's the deal. Fear is a good thing if it causes you to turn to God. Fear is a good thing if it causes you to pray. And fear is a good thing if it causes you to ask God for help. So let fear motivate you. Japhat's first reaction is fear, but his response to that fear is to pray. So too often we treat prayer like a last resort. People say, we've run out of masks, we've run out of ventilators, and there's no beds, and this and that. And all we can do now is pray. And then somebody goes, has it really come to that? Like, now that it's hopeless, it's time to pray. Well, the thing is that we should have been praying a whole lot earlier. And it should have been our first choice, not our last resort. There's no problem. Now get this. There's no problem too big to pray about. And there's no problem too small to pray about. You just pray. That's what God wants us to do. King Japhat wanted God's perspective. So he's asking God, what do you want me to do? How do you see it from your angle? Help me see this problem from your viewpoint. Japhet got other people to pray with him as well, and we need to do that. In verse 4, it says the entire country of Judea united in seeking God's help. They came from all the cities to pray to God. When we're asking God for help, that's called worship, because you're saying, I'm trusting you, God. Ask is the A. Have you asked God for his perspective on your worry? Well, let's take a short break and I'll come back with part B in the ABCs of worship.